Do you ever give up on someone?
Helping someone is a team sport. Success is a team sport. I will say to them point blank, listen, if you're not going to be involved in this, then there's no point to me being involved. And most of us are really crap at listening. It's probably something entirely different. It's just that we had the wrong strategy. I think it's hilarious when people say, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Well, it depends. Life is balanced and it's always contextual. And everything that we have that's a strength has liability attached, and every weakness we have has strength that's attached.
I can imagine, because of the books you've written and the channels you have and the content you produce, that a lot of people come to you on a personal level, friends, family, to help solve some of the problems that they're having in their lives. I find myself in somewhat of a similar position. Maybe they're not coming to me. Maybe I'm inserting myself into the problem to try and solve it, because that's my nature. But do you ever give up on someone? Something I've thought about, and I'm reflecting on my friend a little bit here.
Yeah.
And friends I've had from my childhood, who I remember offering a guy. I was like, if you can just do 1 month working in Subway where he was working, I'll pay for your rent so you can move out of that city and go get a job. He didn't do the 1 month in Subway.
Yeah.
And at one point there's part of me who's like, everyone's solvable, the optimistic in me. And the other part of me goes, at some point you have to give up on people.
So the single greatest lesson I ever learned in my career that profoundly changed the course of my life, and it comes right before the realization and the articulation of why. I learned how to ask for help, and I learned how to accept it when I was offered. Okay, and I think that it's not about giving up on someone. It's that helping someone is a team sport. Success is a team sport, and if you find that you're the only player in their life when they should be the primary player, you can only do the assists. You'll never be the one making the baskets. That's their job, right? But if they won't take the pass, then at some point you stop throwing the ball. And it's not about giving up on people. It's about accountability to take responsibility for oneself. And giving up on somebody is, don't ever call me again. You don't take my advice. This is over, right? That's giving up on someone. I think the other way to do it is like, listen, I cannot help you if you cannot be involved to help yourself. And I will want to sit down with them, and I won't criticize and be like, you're not doing this, you have to follow my advice, you have to do this, you got to go work at Subway for the week. Like that's not what, I want to sit down and understand what the blockage is. There's something else. That's the blockage that I can get to, hopefully. But at the end of the day, I will say to them point blank, listen, if you're not going to be involved in this, then there's no point to me being involved. You have to, this is a team and I'm the only player here. And so I will always be here. And when you are ready, maybe it's just bad timing. I don't know what else is going on in your life, and maybe this is not the right time, or maybe I'm a bad fit. But when you are ready, I will still be here no matter what. But you have to call me. There's no more me throwing you the ball. Like, you're going to have to call me.
And then they call you. And then
sometimes
they
do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
In my case, they call me. And then they say it's time, I'm willing to accept the help. And then the same cycle happens over and over again. And you go 5 years of them calling you.
Then they're lying.
But they don't think they're lying. They always think this time's going to be different. I'm going to do it on Monday.
I mean, like I said, I want to know what else is the blockage. You when there's that kind of repeated pattern, then there's something else. And I think our mistake in those situations is repeating our pattern, which is, okay, I'm going to give you the same advice. I'm going to give you the same thing. You're going to do the same thing. I'm going to tell you the same thing. I'm going to give up on you. I'm going to go, like, we're actually repeating a pattern as well. And so, we know this as entrepreneurs, which is, you got to try something completely different. And I think, this goes back to what we were saying a moment ago, which is we are not teaching the skills of how to help others. And one of the biggest skills of learning to help others is learning how to listen. And most of us are really crap at listening, right? We confuse listening with hearing the words that were spoken. You're sitting watching TV and somebody you love is trying to tell you something and you're like, and you're still watching TV. And you're not even listening to me. And we turn around and repeat all the words back to them. That's not listening. That's hearing the words that were spoken to you. Listening is when the other person feels heard, right? And where you are in pursuit of meaning, not the words spoken. You're not so literal, right? And I think in the cases of like your friend, the is to go from an advice giving mode, and the men suffer from this more than women, which is our intention is to fix everything, right? All we want to do is fix. We see the problem, here's the solution, but sometimes that's not what people need. People need to feel seen and heard and understood. And maybe, just maybe, you're going too quickly to fix, and he doesn't feel seen or heard or understood yet. And in this particular situation, and again, I don't know the person, but I would go to an extreme listening. Give the kid the opportunity to empty his bucket. There's only 3 terms you're going to use in the conversation. Go on, tell me more, what else? Because it sounds like it's whatever you think the thing is you're fixing, it's probably something entirely different. And until you can get to that, you're going to give up on somebody who maybe it's just that we had the wrong strategy.
It wasn't until these examples surfaced in my life where I had friends asking me for this kind of help that I started to consider that maybe mindset itself is a privilege. One that if you don't acknowledge and understand, you'll end up giving advice from a very privileged place. I might say, well, just work harder, just cheer up.
Yeah.
These kinds of things come from a misunderstanding that my brain is fortunate enough to think and be a certain way.
Yeah.
But I've never heard people talk enough about this idea that our mindset in and of itself is a privilege, and that,
That's interesting. That mindset is a privilege. Is that true?
If we think about the early upbringing in childhood then.
Yeah.
So that was maybe, some people have monetary privilege from their childhood. One thing that your parents or your experiences might have given you is a real psychological privilege.
So let me just think out loud for a second, right? Let me try and unpack that. There are many stories of people who, when the odds were against them, whether they came from extreme poverty or abuse, rose up to have successful and happy lives, right? And when we read about them or talk to them or meet them or hear interviews from them, they talk about mindset. They talk about, my mother taught, usually the mother, my mother taught me to never be a victim. My mother taught me that I was capable of anything. And so they had a mindset, where some people have a victim mindset, and then that's the life they continue to live. Some people have a different mindset, and it can lift them out of what we would consider unprivileged circumstances, right? So, it makes me question then, is mindset a privilege? And we both know people that have every privilege afforded to them, every one of them. And yet, for whatever reason, their mindset is the wrong one, and they can squander all of that opportunity, all of those advantages that they've been afforded, and make a mess. So I question whether mindset is a privilege. There are a lot of privileges in life. Mindset, I think, is one of the ones that is there for the taking.
I think about, so I was 18 years old, dropped out of university, shoplifting food to feed myself. And in that moment, I was entirely convinced that I was going to be a millionaire. What did I do? What did I actively do?
So you're just countering your own point that mindset is not a privilege.
No, I'm saying because I think that I have the privilege that mindset was given to me by my experiences and maybe by my biology. I'm wondering why in that situation, if you'd put me and my best friend that I talked about with the subway example in the same situation, one of us would have catastrophized, and me, I just saw it as this wonderful stepping stone to the point that I went around my house videoing my despair, videoing my dire situation, opening the fridge. There's nothing in it. My first page of my diary on Facebook notes, which I kept, says, I'm keeping this diary because a TV production company have asked me to bullshit. I lied to my own diary because I look back and go, this kid was sure that he was getting out of here.
Well, I mean, I played tricks and games with myself as well, I mean, I remember, some of them are hilarious, but I did the same thing, and I said, I go back to the concept of why, which is it's the experiences we had when we were young that formed us into who we are. It wasn't the shoplifting alone. It was your parents, it was your friends, it was your teachers.
Is that a privilege?
At what point, everybody has a why, and everybody's why is affirmative. And so, like I told you about the abuse story, something really positive and someone really positive came out of that trauma. So, I'm struggling to use the word privilege to mindset, because what you're saying is anyone who's had any kind of luck or turnaround or has privilege, where anyone who hasn't and has failed, it's because of their lack of privilege. Like, there's too many other factors involved in that.